This is Jewish Board Talk with Charisse Zeifert, only on 101.9 Chai FM.
Israel's preemptive strike against Iran on the 13th of June caught, I would say, most people by surprise, especially those traveling to and from the country. With airspace closed for the duration of the war, many found themselves staying in the country a bit longer than anticipated. Wendy Kahn, National Director of the Jewish Board of Deputies, however, came to the rescue, organizing a repatriation flight. She's my guest now to tell me more and how and why.
Hello,
welcome,
Charisse.
Wendy.
So nice to be back.
Lovely to have you. Wendy, you used the word Herculean task.
I used it.
Yes, with lots of moving targets to organize that plane. Just tell me why.
It's so interesting. It just brought back to me the days of COVID when we were really trying desperately to get people from South Africa to Israel and Israel to South Africa, and the kinds of humanitarian stories that we were hearing then, we were hearing now as well. It's a frightening thing when airspace closes and suddenly you realize that short little 5-day pop in and out of Israel isn't going to happen, and it's now going to be a 3-week. It's got implications for people financially, obviously. It's got implications for family relations when one member of the family is not able to come back and be reunited with their family. There were lots of medical issues. You know, people's medications started running out. Not so simple to go and get replenish those in a foreign country. Very difficult. You know, we had numerous personal problems that really, for me, I take personally, because I just think we're at a stage now we don't have an embassy in Israel, and the embassy is one thing, the political side is one thing, but to not have any consular support for South Africans in Israel is a really scary thing. And for us, it meant that we as a board, and that's where we come in a lot of the time, is when people are desperate and they need help navigating the system, whether it's arranging flights, whether it's engaging with home affairs and international relations, whatever that is, that at least our community did not feel alone. And several of the messages I received were, we were desperate, we were alone. And, you know, for some people, they could go and buy a ticket and go out on a cruise, or they could drive through Jordan or Egypt, take those kind of risks and get onto a flight. For the majority of people, that wasn't an option. They were holding Ethiopian tickets. They couldn't go and suddenly buy new tickets, and we had to help them. We had to help them I think also what was interesting is that we knew that even when the skies opened, it wasn't going to be a quick fix. It wasn't going to be like, yeah, okay, here are the flights, get on the next flight. We knew that the flights, as soon as they were reintroduced, would be jam-packed, and they were.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not just South Africans who are trying to get in and out. I can imagine the chaos at that airport.
Absolute chaos. And once you stop flying, there's a whole new process. I've now become an expert in aviation. There's a whole new process that has to, in terms of re-entry, you have to reschedule all your flight plans. You have to get insurance. You have to make sure that there's the safety aspects for your aircraft. You have to get reinserted into the schedules at Ben Gurion Airport. It's a mammoth project. And we were told it would only reopen on the 1st of July. Now, first of all, we knew a lot of these people could not wait for the 1st of July. And secondly, we knew that those flights were going to be fully booked. And the majority of the people, and we had at one stage up to about 260 people on our lists, 260 people desperate to come back to South Africa for various reasons. Some of them were students, some of them were people who had to get back to jobs, some of them had to get to doctors. We had a woman who was in a very advanced stage of pregnancy who needed to get back. There were all these different factors. And we knew that we couldn't wait. We had to start putting the processes in place. We had to start negotiating with Ethiopian Air and Ben Gurion and the Israeli, all of these factors. I have to give a shout out to the Jewish Agency and to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel, both of whom were really phenomenal and supportive in helping us. And I'm really pleased that we could. In the end, we got 3 aircraft.
Yes, I was going to say to you, let's say, how many aircraft did you
So they agreed to 3.
Is that the
Yeah, it sounds
did you
like
feel quite powerful?
really amazing. They scheduled 1 on the last Saturday, and 2 on Sunday. And I can say that every person who was on our list was accommodated in some way. Some of them decided, they had different routes home. They were going to wait for the later flights, but the majority, I think probably about 200 on our list, came home on those 3 flights.
Oh. There must have been a sense of camaraderie as well on the flights. And I know the comments that you've got kind of talk to the gratefulness that people have experienced.
Yeah, no, for sure. People spoke about how lonely they felt, how alone, how desperate they felt. Some of them said they actually felt hopeless at times. Were they, when was this actually? They knew eventually they'd come home. But time was really of the essence for many of them. And we've received some really, really beautiful, heartfelt messages. And thank goodness they are home. And I think also what's so amazing about the whole story is that how resilient everyone is. That as soon as the flights arrived back, already the new groups were leaving. We've already got tour groups that I know of going. There are youth movement groups going. And I think that's just unbelievably exciting. It gives such hope.
Absolutely. Wendy, in our last remaining 2 minutes, though, let's talk about our concerns as the board right at the beginning when the South African embassy in Israel was shut. And why we have felt, for this exact reason, it's so important for the embassy to open.
Yeah. So I remember, in fact, we wrote to DIRCO, or maybe it was, I think it was to the president in November 2023, and we said, you have got many citizens in Israel. You owe it to them to be there to be providing consular assistance for when these kind of situations emerge, when there is a crisis. Look, there are the everyday issues like passports and birth certificates and all of those things, but when a crisis occurs, there needs to be you need to be providing those services. And what really, really got our goat was when they were offering consular assistance to the people in Iran, when the people in Israel weren't offered the same service. And just let's be honest, that in Iran, the targets were military targets. In Israel, they were civilian targets.
And this is one of the things that the Jewish Board of Deputies is taking up.
We certainly are.
And if you want to know what else the Jewish Board is doing, you should check out our social media pages. So please do that. Wendy, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for the chat.
And good luck with the next project.
Oh, gosh, hopefully not too soon.